Well, friends, New York Comic Con today brought us a bunch of Star Trek news, and instead of doing separate videos and really going into depth on any of it, since, at least in my opinion, none of it was really groundbreaking or worthy of just, 20, 30-minute analyses or anything like that. So I'm going to slapdash put this together, probably have some pretty bad jump cuts, and just go through some of the highlights, or I don't know if you want to call them highlights, just the collection of things that was established here. Starting off with variety here, Star Trek Starfleet Academy, something that, even though I've had no interest in whatsoever as far as having a show set at the Academy, for whatever reason, it's been bandied about since the 80s, possibly even before that. Something about setting something at the Academy really doesn't get my juices flowing as far as being a fun exploration, probably because I assume it's going to be saddled with a bunch of teen angst type of shows where you've got the characters standing at lockers and dealing with heartbreak. I don't think that's necessarily going to be what this show is. They're throwing all the money in the world at it. They're bringing on all of these A-list, well, I don't know if you want to call them A-list actors. There's no Tom Cruises or anything, although Paul Giamatti, pretty high up there. But they're throwing a lot of weight behind it. They're building huge sets. And as we find out here from Variety, Academy has greenlit apparently season 2 before season 1 even has a trailer or any real promo images or anything. So they are definitely quadrupling down on this show being a huge success and this becoming the new tentpole flagship show of Star Trek. They're also bringing in Tatiana Maslany, most recently probably best known for She-Hulk, before that Orphan Black. So they are really just adding a ton of fuel to this fire. Very intriguing that we're actually going to get a season 2 renewal, pickup, green light confirmation before any of season 1 has seen the light of day. However, the one caveat I will put on this, these are 8-10 episode seasons. I don't even know if this has been confirmed for a set amount of episodes for the first season. I'm just trying to scroll down here to see if anything. And most of this, honestly, is just recapping things that we've already learned from prior press releases. But that's the one thing I'm wondering. The reason that they're green-lighting a second season of maybe, let's say, 8 or 10 episodes, whatever it's going to be. If you think back to the olden days, TV shows were already 22, 24, whatever, going back even further, 30, or, whatever. They were a hefty amount of episodes per season. So to greenlight a second season, you're really giving this show a normal first season as far as episode lengths. And that's something we don't get these days. That's something I've been seeing people having issues with Strange New World specifically. People are saying they're tired of them doing gimmicky episodes. When we only have a 10-episode season, they really need to buckle down and get to the meat and give us the real heart of the show. And by giving us 2 seasons, if they are 10 episodes, that's a 20-episode season, for instance, 2 big story arcs, that's probably giving it enough of a head start to really dig in and give us a real feeling of what the show actually is. I'm willing to be won over as much as I don't want an Academy show, or if I did have an Academy show, this is not the setting I would have chosen to put it in. I would have actually continued following the Prodigy kids, but since that's the black sheep of the family that nobody wants to acknowledge even exists in Star Trek, even though it's probably the best show they've done in the last few years specifically, since that can't be given any real credence right now because of all of the problematic relationships with being at Netflix and all that stuff, setting it in the 32nd century, is it the 32nd century? Wherever Discovery took place, really cements the fact that they're trying to set their own mark in the universe. So I am more cautiously optimistic in this show being something better than I'm hoping for, simply because of the sheer amount of money and star power they're cramming into it. Hopefully, they go on some training missions. I personally think they're using the Mirror Enterprise that they rescued in Discovery's 5th season as their training vessel. I don't know why I think that. I just feel like that was a backdoor setup to use that as their training ship. If they go out and do actual Starfleet missions, train in the field, have ship stuff, and it's not just sitting around in classrooms and gossiping about who they're in love with and who didn't text them back on their quadcorders or whatever you call it, then I think we might have a decent show on our hands. But I'm just worried this is going to be more of a relationship in high school type thing instead of a Starfleet exploration of the characters. Be that as it may, that's just my taste. That's not the type of show I look for in Star Trek, but I definitely feel like Star Trek is the setting where you can have all sorts of different types of shows as long as you have a real flagship going at the same time. We have that sitcom going on. You could do a medical drama. You could do a legal drama. I guess what the sitcom's supposed to be, it's going to be like a Starfleet Parks and Rec on Risa or something. You can do all of these things as long as you have a benchmark flagship Star Trek show. So I am hoping with all of the stuff they're putting behind this, it's actually going to turn into something good. And the confirmation we're getting a second season before season 1 airs is probably just they've invested so much in this, they want to give it as much of a chance to succeed as possible. You know, when it comes out, I will be here to judge whether I like it or not. Hopefully, fingers crossed, it turns out to be something amazing, because if you go into something with lower expectations, you have a higher chance of being blown away. At least that's the way I'm trying to view things these days. I'm not going into things expecting it to be just stellar from the get-go. But let's move on to the next story. Magically, we're still here in Variety with the next one. Star Trek Section 31 film gets release date, and Rhys Darby to guest star on Strange New Worlds. I think the Strange New Worlds thing is what's most interesting here. We've already gotten trailers for Section 31, we've already got cast breakdowns, and we probably already know as much as we're going to about that movie before it actually releases. So, in essence, getting a release date is the most I was really hoping for as far as New York Comic Con goes, to get that out of the way and really set it up to finally get it on the map to when it's coming out to us. So the Star Trek Universe panel released the information, as well as a Star Trek Lower Decks screening of the season premiere, which, of course, we have to wait a few more days to see, and I think it's coming out, this Thursday? They announced Section 31 is going to premiere January 24th on Paramount Plus in the US and internationally where the streamer is available. That is interesting. So I assume that means it's not being shipped out to all of the places around the world that don't have Paramount Plus, where people are still watching their Star Trek on Netflix and things. Curious to see how that works out for people elsewhere in the world. But that's really all we're getting here. Section 31 dropping January 24th on Paramount Plus in the US and maybe other places internationally. Who's to say? But really, the Strange New Worlds adding of Rhys Darby as a guest star, kind of cool. Don't know who he's going to play. I generally like him in all the things that I've seen him in. He kind of always plays a similar character, but probably the first place I remember him from is Flight of the Conchords, so interesting to see him in there. We also got some more Strange New World stuff, so let's magically flip over there and talk about that just a little bit. Here we are magically watching the exclusive New York Comic Con Strange New World Season 3 clip. Now, I'm not going to play this because they're going to play lots of games if I do try to play it, so I'll just play a little bit of a clip here, and we'll see that we're basically picking up from the cliffhanger from the last season where the Gorn had basically incapacitated our characters and Pike was just kind of standing there indecisively. Now, I know they said that they were playing that. It wasn't really a real-time thing. Whatever, I don't actually care about that scene too much. What I do care about, though, is in the promo clip they released earlier on with that funny Vulcan moment, that really undercut any sort of tension that we would have from who may live or who may die from this very dire cliffhanger, because we know all of these characters will survive to become goofy Klingons somewhere down the line in the next season. Now, we don't know that about everyone. There were certain characters not present in that, I think possibly, who wasn't in there. I don't know if Pelia was in there. I assume she's going to be okay. And I also don't believe that Batel was in there. That being said, she was probably the one most marked for death anyway, since she currently has a Gorn inside of her, so most of the rest of the cast were already safe, being that they were in the original series anyway. But I do feel like when that was released, it did undercut the tension just a minor bit, because now we know everyone's going to be fine. Yes, it's Star Trek. Everyone was probably going to be fine no matter what. So we see here that Pike has come up with a fancy solution with a little bit of help from his friends, harmonics of the shields and things. They're going to ram the Gorn ship. Their shields are going to interfere with each other, and then they're going to be able to actually do some stuff and then warp away and God save the Queen or whatever he says at the end. I wish I could actually play it and react to it, but again, YouTube probably will not allow that, or Paramount won't, or whoever actually does these claims. So that's cool. You can watch it on your own time. It looks pretty, but I don't think personally Star Trek needs all of these fancy effects to be good, so hopefully the story actually falls in line with that as well. There was also another bit of footage we received, and suddenly, just like magic again, we are here with the lower decks footage, I guess you can call it. This is basically just an extended look at stuff we already saw in the trailers. We see the Cerritos encountering some sort of quantum fissure, or I can't remember exactly what they called it. Basically, the doorway into alternate dimensions, and this leads us to, obviously, what we already saw in the trailer before, alternate version of the Cerritos. And if I can find it here, yeah, this crew that we already saw before, the alternate universe crew, we have basically everybody looking different except for Dr. T'Ana. Whether or not she's going to be exactly the same, I don't know. Maybe she'll be kind. But we get Captain Becky Freeman. Interesting, she's using her mother's last name. Hopefully that means we'll get some sort of resolution as to why she has a different last name. It's going to be the final season, so curious to find all of those things out. Also, this probably lends more credence to the reason that Harry Kim has so many duplicates running around later on in the last trailer we saw. Probably because there's some sort of, I don't know, crisis on infinite realities or something going on here, and they're just bringing the multiverses together. Maybe it's similar to Parallels in TNG. Maybe it's more goofy or just over the top than that. Not much to glean here aside from there is actually a crossover in the realities, whereas before that was just basically an assumption and we didn't know that 100%. So again, you can check this out on your own time. This is actually pretty fun, but it doesn't give us that much more information, which we don't need since the episodes actually start airing just a few days from now. And through the magic of editing, once again, here we are looking at something I haven't seen as many people talking about, but this is something that's actually kind of interesting and near and dear to my heart. Collectibles and figures and owning a piece of Star Trek you can put on your shelf and look at all the time. This, coming from Trek Movie, they announced a new line of figures from Nacelle, which are going to feature some more deep-cut characters, the biggest and most prominent probably having to be Tuvix here. Very cool to see that. Come down here, you get to see what it looks like. Now, what's best and most interesting to me about this line, before I get to some more of the others, is the price. So they hope to be available for under $30 each. First quarter 2025, we get some very cool characters here. We get Jellicoe, we get Peter Preston from all the way back in the movie era. We get Valkyris, we get Captain Garrett, which is cool in her TNG getup, her TNG look. She's coming back in Section 31, so whether or not we're going to see another version of her, that remains to be seen as well. And then if you come down here, we're also going to get some characters we have not yet seen promos for. Mirror Archer, Weyoun, and Captain Sulu. Very cool to get a Mirror Archer since he was prominently featured as Boimler's collectible action figure in the last season of Lower Decks, and hopefully these do well because the price point is much better than a lot of the other collectible figures out there, and if we can get some more obscure and some lesser known characters to have action figures, things that we won't normally see out there. Even in the Playmates lines, there's certain characters we never got action figures for. So to have these more stylized and articulated versions, I think it's a win-win for everyone right now, especially for a lot of the classic deep cut characters, for the classic deep cut fans like myself and others out there. I saw that there was some more casting announcements for who is playing the family of Georgiou in Section 31. I have my money on Hoshi reprising her role in this movie. Highly doubt that's actually going to happen. It would just make so much sense if this is set in the Mirror Universe and we're showing the early origins of Georgiou, to have Hoshi there to kind of connect that lineage from the Mirror Universe Enterprise episodes where she took over as Emperor into the lineage and the line of Georgiou. Whether or not they play on that, I don't know. Maybe it'll just be a rough connection or a mention. Linda Park coming back to reprise her role in anything is fantastic in my eyes, but do I want that to be in Section 31 when we already only have a brief amount of time to tell this entire story that was crammed down from an entire season to begin with? I don't know if we have all the time to spend there for a glorified cameo. Again, love to see Linda Park, and if they can bring back any Enterprise people to fulfill further future roles, I would be on board for that. That's what we learned from Star Trek Day today. There was probably a lot more stuff out there. I just wanted to give some brief thoughts on it and kind of get the news out there. There's probably better videos breaking everything down, but this is just the nuts and bolts of what was released today. And like I said, go check out Variety, Trek Movie, all of these other places for more thorough articles and analyses, and by the time this goes live, they've probably announced some other stuff. Maybe we'll get some more tomorrow on Sunday, but I don't know. Leave all your thoughts down below. Are you excited for any of these things? What do you think about Academy? Are you excited for 2 seasons? Do you think the show is going to be a grand misfire? Or do you think they're putting so much effort behind it that it's actually going to turn out to be something better than all of the sum of its parts? What do you think about Section 31? Do you feel like they have enough time to tell a good and decent story? Or is it going to be more of just a fun throwaway? Or is it going to fall flat on its face? Are you excited for these figures? And what do you think about the new seasons of both Lower Decks and Strange New Worlds based on the footage that we've seen so far? Personally, I'm more excited for Lower Decks. Strange New Worlds, we have yet to see more than just that goofy Vulcan episode and the brief resolution of the cliffhanger that we all knew was coming anyway. Whatever you think, leave all of it down below. Like, share, subscribe, do all those fancy YouTube things. But until next time, computer and program.